Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well. In this video, I want to talk about 4 bows that I've had from Mandarin Duck. Now, I'm not wearing the Mandarin Duck t-shirt. I'm wearing one of the Fear t-shirts you can get from tailwind.store, link down below. All proceeds go to charity. But as I'm not wearing the Mandarin Duck t-shirt, this is not something I intend for their YouTube channel. This is not something I intend for their Facebook page or anything like that. This is my thoughts, my opinions on the bows that I've had from them, that I've shot from them, and I'm comparing it to other bows that I've had from other companies. I do want to make it very clear though, I do work with Mandarin Duck. If you talk to them on Facebook, you're talking to me. If there is a comment that's left on one of your comments on Facebook, it's me. If I check the YouTube page and I see one of their comments on one of their videos, you're talking to me. It's always best to go through Facebook because I definitely get the messages that way. But yeah, I work very closely with Mandarin Duck and I do love my job with them. I really do. So take that with a pinch of salt. I might be a little bit biased, but I do genuinely think this is one of the best companies out there. Let's talk about the 4 bows. Number 1, the Blackrock. Now the Blackrock, that was my elbow. My elbow made that sound. The Blackrock. The Blackrock is a bow that caught my attention fairly early on. See, I had seen the Blackrock in a number of different places, on Amazon, Wish, AliExpress, a ton of different places, and it was always an interesting looking bow to me. It always kind of had that budget feel, but I wanted to know how well it was. Now it is a modern day takedown longbow. You can typically tell that there's a ton of different longbows, reflex, deflex and the rest of it, but this has the typical longbow D shape. It's just a modern format. For me, the Blackrock screams tactical. It kind of shouts that it's a tactical bow. Its black finish is something that sort of hides away the wear and tear you'll get over the years. The materials that it's used for, especially that grip, is something that you can leave in the dirt or leave on the side and then just brush it off so that it doesn't affect your shooting. It's a very rough, tough bow. It's not pretty, and it doesn't really have that mindset when you're shooting it. Yeah, much like guitars for musicians out there, each guitar has a personality and each bow has a personality. The personality of the Blackrock is tactical, is very methodical, is very get the job done. Now, the previous longbow that I shot before that was actually the Timber Creek Cottonmouth, and I was pretty disappointed with it. I don't know whether I just hyped it up in my head or if it was because they stopped using bamboo for limb cores, but that was it was a difficult bow for me to fall in love with. It was a difficult bow for me to really appreciate. Now when I put the extra time into it, yeah, it's a bow that I did absolutely enjoy, but as I said at the time, it was a critical old man, in that if you do everything right, the bow will reward you. But if you do something wrong, the bow will criticize you. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but for me personally, and this whole thing is just my personal opinion, it does make enjoying archery difficult when you've got something that consistently has a go at you. The Blackrock feels the same way when you're drawing it back, but when you release it, it is that powerful punch. It is that getting the job done, but without the typical criticism that I had with the Timber Creek Cottonmouth, which is an interesting feature. Now it was tapped for sights. I think, if I remember rightly, it came with pins. Yes, as I was saying before, traffic. If I remember right, it came with pin sights. It also, like, one of the fun little things about this bow, because the whole thing was tactical, the whole thing, but it had a compass in the riser, and a compass that was pretty damn good as well. I thought that was just a little fun little thing. Like, you don't need a compass on your bow riser, but the fact that it was there, I thought was just a fun little thing, a nice little extra little thing, and I really enjoyed it. Now, I don't know if it was such a tough old man to draw back because of the fiberglass limbs. It was probably because of that. These weren't a combination, these were just fiberglass limbs. So again, this is one of those cheap budget bows, but it is still a pretty good bow. Someone pointed out in a previous video I shouldn't use the word cheap, but occasionally it does slip out. But no, it was a good bow. And essentially, when it comes down to buying a bow, if you should buy it or not, a lot of the time it comes down to, well, do you like it? Because if you like it, you're going to get on with it. I mean, let's face it, the reason why we shoot traditional bows instead of compound bows or crossbows is because we like traditional bows. We like recurves, we like horse bows, you know, we like all these particular things. They fit our style and we shape it around them. So we ignore the drawbacks and we shoot them because we like them. So if you do like that type of bow, if you do like the modern take of a long down, if you do like that tactical sensation, then yeah, you'll get on with the Blackrock. I would recommend a different arrow rest. Personally, I've always been a fan of the Timberdoodles. I had one on my Oneida, and I personally, again, personal preference, I just think they're better. And it's definitely a bow that wants you to shoot from an arrow rest and not off the shelf. But it is still a cracking little bow. Definitely enjoyed that bow. And I did end up giving it to a friend. He enjoys it. It's encouraged him to fall in love with archery, which is always great because archery is awesome. Number 2, the iconic Black Hunter. The Black Hunter is one of those bows that has just filled the internet. Now, some of it has horror stories depending on where you've gone to get your Black Hunter, but it seems to be universal. People love the grip, they love the feel of it, they love the way that it shoots. Now, I will always recommend getting the Black Hunter from Mandarin Duck. There are other places you can go, it's not specific to Mandarin Duck, but I would never recommend going to somewhere like AliExpress. The reason is very simple. In the archery world, you pay or rent for a particular mold, and then you choose what kind of materials you want to build that mold from, and you go about it that way. This is why the AliExpress versions of the Black Hunter look the part, and they feel the part when you shoot them, but they explode in your hands because they're made from inferior wood. Whereas the Mandarin Duck versions, we use high quality woods to make sure that the riser actually lasts. Again, one of the reasons why I wanted to work with Mandarin Duck and why I'm so happy to continue working with Mandarin Duck is because they want the customer to come first. We're not going to force a bow on you that's not right for you. We want you to enjoy archery. We want you to enjoy the bow that you've got. So yeah, that's important to us. Whereas a seller on AliExpress, and I do keep picking on AliExpress because I've had a number of people talk to me on Facebook trying to get refunds when they didn't buy a bow from Mandarin Duck. They bought it from AliExpress. They've obviously got nowhere on AliExpress, but the bows didn't come from us. That's an issue. Anyway, the point is, when I first picked up the Black Hunter, it was an immediate love. The grip is absolutely phenomenal. There's a reason why it's iconic. There's a reason why so many people try to copy and use that mold of the bow, because it's such a beautiful bow. Now, I've got the longbow version because the longbow version I thought was the only version with bamboo limbs, bamboo core, and I am a massive bamboo fanboy. Turns out, whether you get the longbow version or the recurve version, both have a bamboo core. Mandarin Duck now have the Black Hunter Mark II, which is slightly different, but it's still everything that made the Black Hunter fantastic. The only difference is there's a slight aesthetic difference. Not with the grip, but overall, so you can kind of tell apart the differences between the bows. But of course, when you have an icon like the Black Hunter, you want to make sure that the successor has that very clear heritage. And it is an icon. It's a beautiful, beautiful bow. I paid over £2,000, 2,000 of the English monies, for the Oneida Phoenix. Now, I said beforehand, I said at the time, I've said since, on paper, that is the best bow in the world. It is this beautiful lever action hybrid bow that ticks all of the boxes. Yes, there are some bows that are better in one particular area, but in my opinion, there is no bow that balances all these perfections in one go. That being said, when my Black Hunter turned up, I very rarely shot my Oneida. Now, there's a lot of reasons for it. The Oneida is a heavy bow. I have infinite issues with my left shoulder, which holds the bow. It's one of the reasons why I shoot quite light. I only really shoot 30 pounds, maybe 40 pounds at a push, but I certainly don't shoot war bows anymore, even though that's a different shoulder. But long periods of shooting with the Oneida was tough. It was tough on my shoulder. Long periods of shooting with the Black Hunter is easy. The grip feels better. The bow just grips. The riser molds to your hand. It feels part of you when you shoot that bow. It's a very smooth draw, and the release is something pretty special. I've made this comparison 100 times before about bamboo bows. It's like a puppy when you come home. You've been out of work all day, you come home, that puppy is the most excited thing in the world to see you. It can't get enough of you. You sat down, it's running all over you, it's kissing you, it's wagging its tail and jumping about. You then snap your fingers, and suddenly this puppy gets up, goes to the fridge, and gets you a drink. It's excitement, and the second you snap your finger, that bow is performance. It's amazing. It's one of the best bows I'd shot at that point. Number 3, the Raider. Now, this is a love affair, but it's a love affair that's kind of difficult to explain, because when I get my hands on ILF bows, I am very aware that half of the personality of the bow is the limbs. You know, you have the personality of the bow when you pick it up, when you figure is not a word, when you feel it in your hands, when you've got that grip and you're lining everything up. Then when you draw it back and release, a lot of what you're feeling is the limbs, and the limbs can be swapped out. This is, you know, swings and roundabouts. So I remember, actually, a bit of a story time for this. I remember a couple of years ago in September 2019, I remember getting a very short message on Facebook from the company, and it was just a couple of seconds. It was a couple of seconds of them showing me this riser, the Raider, in the beautiful eye-popping blue that it comes in, with no rest, no grip, nothing like that. It was just the forge casted riser. Only a few seconds, but I absolutely adored it, and I waited and I waited and I waited, and throughout all of 2020 it didn't happen, and then at the start of 2021, that's when they asked me for samples, because I don't proposition them for both. I feel like that would be unprofessional of me, because they're already paying me. They have now given me affiliate link, which will be down below if you want to get any of these bows. Do recommend it. So I can make commission as well as my retainer. I'm very, very fortunate to work with them, and it's a company that I do genuinely love working with. So I don't want to take the piss all the time to say, okay, well, now I want the Viper, because I absolutely want the Viper. But I don't want to constantly be asking for bows, because it is a business, and I don't want to take the piss, because I do enjoy my job, and I do think it's important to be professional when you're doing anything even remotely close to this line of work. Your reputation your reputation. Why was that so hard to say? Your reputation is everything in this industry. But that being said, it is a beautiful little bow that I have fallen in love with. It's not just that initially it came with the Devourer, which I will talk about in a second, and that made it difficult to fall in love with. But when I picked it up and I stopped thinking about the Devourer and I started shooting and I was throwing arrows down at the target, something became very, very clear. Something just snapped. It was a zen-like moment. The bow feels a part of you. It feels like you're both in agreement. You're talking or communicating with this sentient entity, and you're both very clear of what you want to get done. You know, you want to send that arrow down the line. You want to hit your target. And the riser, the raider, is very clear and communicates to you that it wants that to happen as well. So you're both working towards the same goal. I get that that's a very hippie way of describing this. A very hippie way of describing this, but that is what it feels like. It feels like there's two parts of you that are trying to achieve the same goal and you're working together. The Raider is a fantastic way of doing this. It's something that just, it doesn't demand anything from you. It feels a little bit tougher drawing it back than some of the other bows. It feels a little more heavier. It feels a little more serious. But when all's said and done, this bow gets it every time. You'll get some cracking shots with this bow. And it's actually one of the few bows that I actually have proudly displayed. So I have my Devourer is still in the bag because I move things around my flat all the time. My Black Hunter is proudly displayed. And right next to it, with some of my plants, I have the Raider and the Splinter Limbs. Now I'm not going to move the camera because I have all my washing over there and no one wants to see me undies. But point is, this bow is such a beautiful riser. It's such a beautiful bow that I want it to be displayed. Also, the fact that it's ILF means that I can swap out those limbs and go for something that aesthetically is more my style. I had the Hoyt Game Master 2 riser, and that was a bow that I still dream about that bow. It is one of my perfect bows. You know, one of the bows I want. And it's a shame that it's not in production anymore. At least I don't think it is, because it's a bastard enough to find. Point is, I had that riser. I didn't have the Game Master limbs with it. Instead, I had Remington limbs with it. And eventually I did sell that riser, and I regret selling that riser. But those limbs also went onto my Timber Creek ILF. I can't remember what that was called for the life of me. But those lighter coloured Remington limbs matched really well with both the Game Master 2 and the Timber Creek ILF, whatever the hell that was called. So I know that aesthetically it's going to work really, really well with my Strider. I don't have any immediate plans to do that, but I am going to do that at some point. I am going to get the lighter coloured limbs, match it with it. Black on black's always cool, but I prefer black with a little bit lighter colour thrown into it. Overall though, it is a really good bow. It's one of the more expensive risers on Mandarin Duck's website, but again, when you compare it to some of the competition out there, it's very, very similar to the Hoyt Buffalo, actually. And the Hoyt Buffalo was a good few £100. It was a good few £100. The Game Master 2, the bow that came out after that, was about £250 when I bought it. And that was a cracking little riser. I think this riser is nicer. The way that it curves, the way that it just forms and fills your hand, it feels like a better bow. But I do want to swap out those limbs. Just because black with black limbs aesthetically for me isn't as good as something that looks like maple or something like that. Just my personal preference. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I believe it's time to talk about the Devourer. Now, I think everyone at the company knew the Devourer was going to be a popular bow, but I don't think anyone knew just how popular. Now, we get messages in all the time, are you going to make a left-handed version of this? And yes, is the short answer. We're going to make a left-handed version of all our bows. The thing is, the left-handed versions are expensive. They're very, very expensive. And we sort of have to make sure that... Give me a minute, I do know how to speak English, he says as he messes up the word English. We have to know that investing in the left-handed molds is going to, you know, be productive. It's going to be financially viable, because this is not a company that makes umpteen mounds of millions of billions. You know, this is a very affordable company. This is a company that puts the customer first, which is, again, one of the reasons why I love working with Mandarin Duck so much. They put the archer first. As I've said, I've had bows from Hoyt. Hoyt doesn't give a rat's ass that I bought a bow. They don't care about my opinion on the bow. They just care that they have my money. And unfortunately, as much as I've promoted Oneida before, and I do think the Oneida Phoenix is, on paper, take away personal preference, I do think the Oneida Phoenix on paper is the best bow in the world, and it baffles me that in later arrow seasons the Oneida just disappeared. I think that was a shame. But Oneida's customer service, in my experience, mostly leans towards they don't care. Give us your money and jog on. Mandarin Duck's not like that. Mandarin Duck puts the customer first. So we can't, you know, put massive amounts of money into something that we're not gonna see money back, because none of us are incredibly wealthy. I'm very lucky to have the flat that I live in, but I do more than just work with Mandarin Duck. I work at the very least 3 different jobs. But there is a left-handed version of the Devourer because it has just been that damn popular, and it sells out really fast for the right-handed versions because it really is that good. Now, part of my job with Mandarin Duck is to reach out to people and companies and say, you know, other little bits like, hey, we've got this, do you want this? And build those connections, you know, networking. So because of that, I've spoken with a few people, and I've set up for a few people to get their own Devourer. Every single review has been incredibly positive. And there's a reason for it. It's not people just blowing smoke up arses. It's because the bow really is that good. It really is that enjoyable. When I network and when I speak to these people, John from Hush Custom Archery, who is fantastic. John is brilliant. He's one of the best human beings on the planet. And also, if you are looking for custom made arrows made for you, with you in mind, I will leave his website down below, because my god, this man knows his shit. But yeah, we talk quite a bit. I'm very thankful that I can call John a friend, because he is such a nice guy. He is, again, one of the best human beings on the planet. So when we talk, it's very clear. I made it very clear to him. I work with Mandarin Duck. I don't have a contract or anything like that. I work with them, but I'm not a company robot, if that makes any sense. You know, I love the company, but people don't have to be constant suck-ups. I'm not gonna turn around and say, well, they said this about this, so we shouldn't send them any more free shit. No, be honest. Honesty is key. But even then, you know, you watch John's video about the Devourer. What he said in that video is what he said to me 1,000 times. He's very honest with where he stands. He's a very authentic person, and he loves the bow because it earns that love. It really does. The moment you pick it up, it's not just the fact that it looks gorgeous, which it absolutely bloody does, But the way that it shoots, it doesn't demand or ask anything. You just have to be vaguely aware of what you're doing. You'll get some great shots with the bow. It's definitely high performance, but it never feels high performance. The Raider is high performance and it feels it when you're shooting. The Black Hunter, you'll get some really good shots from that bow, and it sort of feels it. It sort of feels like that kind of mythic archer that sort of comes in from the mist, launches those few arrows in that perfect pin precision point and then disappears again, and you get that sense. The Devourer is something that tricks you. Its beauty lures you in, and you don't think it can do the things that it can do because it's just so superficially beautiful. But it has a phenomenal way of just reaching those goals as if they weren't goals to begin with. You will make so many magnificent shots with this bow, and for the most part you won't even have to try. You just have to enjoy archery, and it's difficult not to enjoy archery when you've got a bow like the Devourer. Again, there's a reason why this thing just keeps on selling out. It honestly is one of the best bows that I've ever shot, and I can say that about the Black Hunter, and I can say that about the Raider. I'm not sure I can say that about the Blackrock. The Blackrock is a tactical bow. It's one of them survival bows that just gets the job done. But the other three are certainly in the highest ranking. I've shot a lot of bows. I've had numerous horse bows, I've had a few long bows, I've had a few different compound bows, and a ton of recurves. But none of those bows stick out to me. None of them have a place in my heart the way that the three from Mandarin Duck do. The Black Hunter, the Raider, and the Devourer. I think there's a very good reason for it. These are bows that don't break the bank. These are bows that don't try to steal your heart and your soul, and you don't have to think about taking out a second mortgage for these bows. Instead, they swoop in. They gently come in with the tide, and before you know it, you wonder why you spent so long without this particular bow. I think that's the magic of Mandarin Duck in general. It's a company that has been there for a while, and yet when you're finally introduced to them, you wonder why you didn't go there in the first place. And again, I'm saying this as someone wearing my own t-shirt, my own merchandise, not the Mandarin Duck stuff. You can take it with a pinch of salt, but there is a reason why I wanted to work with Mandarin Duck. There's a reason why I promote them so much, and I do so much extra things that I don't have to do. Because they put the archer first. Because they put the passion first. And because the products truly reflect that. Yes, the Blackrock is tactical more than anything else, but all of the other bows, whether it's the Windrunner, whether it's the Viper, whether it's the Devourer, these are all bows that will come into your life. They won't demand anything, but you will fall in love with them because of what they give you. That's pretty special. Okay guys, so to wrap up this video, I want to give a little bit of consumer advice to first time buyers or people who are thinking about buying their second bow or dipping into Mandarin Duck for the first time. Number one, my golden rule. How easily can you communicate with the company? Now, Mandarin Duck is very simple. You can just send us a message on Facebook or you can email us. But even if it's not Mandarin Duck, any other company in the world, how easily can you actually talk to a person? How easily can you get that conversation going? Yes, in different countries, if they're not that active on Facebook, you might have to wait a day or so with emails. But that's really important. If there's not good customer service, I personally don't think the company is worth much. It's is one of the more painful things, but it's why I don't rate Oneida too highly or Hoyt too highly, because they haven't got that customer service. They don't respect the customer, they don't care about the customer, they just want your money. So when buying a bow, how easily can you communicate with the seller? And absolutely do not go to AliExpress and buy a bloody bow. Those things will explode in your hand. I've seen the pictures. Number 2, how much do you like the bow? This is a simple one. It's generally the rule of thumb. You can get caught out on this. I have been caught out on this with the cottonmouth, but typically, if you like the look of a bow, that bow is going to be good for you, because you're going to ignore the downsides. You're going to ignore different things. And if I had bought the cottonmouth when it first came out, if it hadn't have come with the Mamba, which is still so much fun, it's still a bow I shoot today. I do still really love the Mamba. It's just a fun bow. If I'd got the cottonmouth on its own earlier, I probably would have loved it, but I didn't, because it came with a lot of different things and my standards were very different, and it just didn't do it. But typically you will ignore all the downsides of your particular bow because you just love it. There's a reason why people choose traditional archery over compound archery, and there's a reason why people choose compound archery over recurves, and so on and so forth, and it's just because we like that style. That's it. That's all it comes down to. As I've said a million times before, if we were all going for performance, we wouldn't be archers, we'd all use guns. Number 3 is cost. This isn't one that you typically have to worry about with Mandarin Duck, but there are some bows that are massively expensive. Sometimes the price is justified, sometimes it's not. But you do kind of have to keep into account, can you actually afford this bow? I work multiple jobs. I work 3 jobs, and I could not just buy a bow like that. I couldn't. Otherwise, I'd have a new bow every single week. So yeah, price does come into it. And if you're going to suffer because you've bought a bow instead of waiting a few months to put that money aside, or maybe even reaching out to the company and say, look, I can't afford it right now, could you hold one back for me? Here's my preferences, which is always worth a go. That could be better, because you don't want the sting of an unexpected bill coming up and you thinking, well shit, now I have to sell this bow that I've wanted for a long time, and then maybe I can get it back in the future. And just be smart. Take a deep breath. If you can afford it, fantastic. If you can't, there's no harm in waiting just a little bit longer. And finally, this one is kind of a pet peeve of mine. People are going to take the piss. Generally speaking, people take the piss out of you for things that they're just not brave enough to do, things that they're not smart enough to understand, things that they're too damn ignorant and arrogant to even give the light of day. I work with someone who I cannot stand at all, for numerous reasons, but even then, whenever archery is brought up, a snide comment always comes out of her fucking head of people dressing up in silly outfits, as if everyone who goes shooting is always dressed as fucking an extra from Robin Hood Men in Tights. This is what I would wear if I was going shooting today. I would probably even keep the shorts on. Point is, people are going to take the piss out of you no matter what you do. The only gauge in your life, the only mark and standard you have to hold yourself to is you. If you want to start archery, start archery. The people who have never shot a bow in their life might take the piss, but do you really care about the opinions of people who have never done a fucking thing because someone else is actually giving it a go? It's the same thing with everything. People take the piss out of other people who go to the gym, and will even go as far as calling them lazy if they have 2 days off from the gym, when those fuckers don't go to the gym at all. You have people who take the piss out of people who go running. I've done this myself, but I also make it clear it's from a place that I hate running, I do not like running, and I do not do running. But still, people who go running are in a much better physical condition than I am. people who enjoy martial arts and all these other different things. The only benchmark in your life, the only person whose opinion should matter to you is you. So if you want to pick up a bow and go shooting, pick up a bow and go shooting. Find a bow that's good for you. Talk to people, talk to archery shops. You can even reach out to Mandarin Duck. Again, if you're talking to us on Facebook, you are talking to me. I don't do pressure sales. Mandarin Duck does not do pressure sales. We want the bow that is right for you, not the one that you can pay for today. You need the right bow because we want you to enjoy this. So there it is, guys. Make sure you contact the company very easily. Make sure you can afford it. And make sure no one else is influencing your decision. This is your decision. For my affiliate with Mandarin Duck, there isn't a discount, but I will owe you a drink, and I thank you. If you want some of the t-shirts, you can go to tailwind.store, all proceeds go to charity. And if you want custom made, high quality, next level god tier arrows, I will leave a link to Hush Custom Archery. John knows his shit. He is one of the best human beings on the planet, incredibly authentic, and he loves what he does. Take care, guys. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.